Well, good morning to you, Grenada, Carrick, Petey, Martinique, the rest of the Eastern Caribbean, to you, wherever you are. It is 2 minutes gone past the hour of 11 o'clock. Well, welcome to the televised edition of the Mid-Morning Buzz on a Monday, the 16th day of the month of October. The countdown is on to, you know what? Heroes Day. This is Thursday. It's a public holiday. So for those of you who haven't quite got it into your system, it is a public holiday. You can start planning. The day starts with the ecumenical service. Then it transcends itself into to 11 o'clock. At 1 o'clock, that is, there'll be the simultaneous tolling of the church bells across the nation. And the day ends officially in terms of what's planned by the committee with candlelight vigil on the carronage. Well, that's on the 19th, but today with me in studio is Jason Douglas, and he's representing the Ministry of Education, and he's here in his capacity as a curriculum development officer. Mr. Douglas, good morning. Welcome to the program. How are you?
Good morning to you, JC, and I'm blessed, and good morning to all the viewing and listening audience.
How was the process of education for you? I haven't seen you in quite a while. I kind of glimpsed you recently, and then here we are.
Well,
what have you been up to?
I am right here. I haven't been anywhere. Every time people encounter me, they ask me when I came back. But I've been right here. Taught at Anglican High for just over 25 years.
Just about?
Yeah, just about.
Yeah, just about.
Yeah,
it wasn't really much a long time.
That's a short time. Yes, my mom taught for over 30-something years, so it's a short time, relatively speaking.
Right.
Yes, so I've been teaching math and physics there, and now have the opportunity to support and impact education on a broader scale by supporting our teachers.
Let me ask you, and I'm certain you must have been one of those that was quite happy with that initiative put on by the ministry last week, that math workshop, the 2-day math workshop, that gentleman out of Singapore.
Oh yes, I was there on the Thursday. I was actually there at the annex.
Your thoughts, though, on it?
I think it was very powerful. Many of the things the gentleman spoke of are things that I've been advocating for years.
Right.
A math policy, a national policy, mathematical modeling. He spoke about that. He spoke about reasoning and problem solving.
Right.
As a real bedrock for mathematical success, and life in general. So I was really happy. I think teachers were really happy as well with the workshop.
Well, on the heels of that comes the science fair.
Oh, yes.
Yeah? There's no separating math, science. There isn't.
Math is a science. I always say mathematics is a science. That's why we collaborate very closely with the curriculum officers for mathematics. So that's why I was there in that workshop as well, even though it was a mathematics workshop.
Right.
Because you really can't separate the two. If you want to perform well in science, you must have a very good mathematical foundation. And so you find that the two cannot be divorced. They're married for life.
So let's talk about the fair itself. What is some of the overarching objectives? What is your hope at the end of that event that the students are going to get a greater appreciation, and not just the students, but the teachers as well?
Yes. Well, this science fair, just to mention before I go into the objectives, we're working with a theme, water and energy strategies, the key to sustainable development. And so it is our hope that as students work together, they learn a number of things. They learn to collaborate, problem solving, research. So one of our key things is that we've been trying to really get teachers and students to follow the scientific method. And so this science fair, even in how we would have laid it out, helps the students to be able to write up a proper project the way that it is supposed to be done. And so our objectives really coming out of the science fair that students will pique their interest in science. We'll have more of our students entering the STEM field, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, so that when positions open up here in Grenada, we don't have to bring someone in all the time, but we have our people right here who are capable of taking up those roles. So the scope of it is far beyond just a science fair. So from preschool come right up, we have students participating.
What are some of the areas that they're going to be engaging? Is it open?
Right. So the science fair, we basically have divisions. So preschool and kindergarten, that's one division. Then we have lower primary, which you take from grades 1 to 3. We have upper primary, grades 4 to 6. We have lower secondary, forms 1 to 3, and then upper secondary, forms 4 and 5. And this year, we're really happy to have on board another division. We've added another division, that's a tertiary. So TAM-CC and NULO will be participating for the first time this year in the science fair. And we're really happy about that, to have them on board. Yeah.
After this is said and done, what's the greater implication for science, the students, for the ministry?
Well, yes. You see, leading up to the science fair, right? We would have had so many different workshops to help teachers to understand what it is we're expecting for the science fair, and coming out of this science fair. If you look towards the future, really and truly, you're talking about Cadore. We're speaking about Cadore. Students could, just from participating in this workshop, in this science fair, students could realize that, look, I have an interest in this area. This thing piques my interest. I want to explore it further. So we're talking about further in the education, career opportunities, and just the society on a whole, because scientific literacy is something that we have to speak about. It's a conversation to be had. You may not even enter a field in science, but scientific literacy, being literate in science, is something that would really help you in any other field. For example, I had a friend who is a lawyer, but in school she studied science. And it's helping her even in the field with the law. So when you hear certain terminologies, you know exactly what it means and so on. So the implications, we think, is far-reaching for these students, and that they would reach for that. We're happy that the teachers are all on board, because as you know, you can't have a science fair without the input of the teachers. So they've been working really hard with the students to see them put out their best.
And you will agree, though, that science as it is, it allows you to be for creativity.
Oh, yes.
It allows you to become a much more analytical, your ability to reason. So just by virtue of being exposed to it, while you may not be looking necessarily for a future directly in science, but even the way the world's going, Dougie, there's no getting away from it.
You can't get
the very devices that our kids play on, it is science that's evolving in front of their eyes.
And the truth is, the students are ahead of us. When it comes to the technology, especially in the science, the students are ahead of us. So we have to make sure that we are also on the cutting edge. Another aspect, as the students are working, research. This is something that we find sadly lacking, research, the area of research. So we encourage them to research, because, we have this habit sometimes of just observing something and probably jump to a conclusion.
Right.
There's no real research, right? This, from pre, come right up to the tertiary, they have to be involved in some form of research. So getting them in the habit of researching. The other thing is networking. As they participate in the science fair, they would network with other students, they would network with adults in different fields, people who come to judge, adults who come to view, persons there. So opportunity for mentorship and all of these things. So when you think about it, it's a lot, right? Collaboration, creativity, problem solving. You mentioned that this is a big one, because the whole idea of having a science fair is not just to have a science fair.
Right.
We're looking at our nation, we're looking at environmental issues, we're looking at things that are happening in our nation, and these young minds, these young scientists and innovators are the ones who would come up with the solutions to solve these problems.
We talk about conflict resolution. Center to having a conversation when it relates to science is your ability to observe, to reason, logics, deduction, critical thinking.
Yes, data analysis.
And hopefully that it will allow them, even as just part of the human interaction developing, that they would take those elements, because very often you find out a lot of young people, they seem to do things so haphazardly,
yes,
without necessarily being able to think through the process of why I'm doing that. Hopefully this will help to assist.
Hopefully we're really helping that this will help to assist, because you see, you may be able to identify a problem, But then now you have to gather data. Okay, why is this happening? Why is it happening now? And you gather data, and then that data informs your decisions, right? Not you just see something and you feel a certain way and you just decide to do.
Right.
It transcends into life.
My behavior, my action, what I choose not to do,
You're
or
on the
choose to
football
do.
field and something happens before you jump to pull a knife or pull this or do something that you would regret later.
Yeah.
You're able to think through the process and think about the end from the beginning, because you want to think, what are the consequences? If I do this, what are the consequences? So in science, it's the same thing, because you think about sustainable development and so on, if you cut down all the trees,
Right.
just because you want development, that's not sustainable, because my children and their grandchildren, down the road, they will not be able to sustain life. All right, so the science, this whole science, the scope of it is so broad. I mean, we could be here for the whole day.
And you can't go wrong by introducing it at such an early age.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, some people are still thinking science, preschool children.
Of course, you'd be amazed. Because leading up to this, we had district fairs. So that was since in May, April, we had district science fairs, and we encourage each school to have a science day. So as officers, we went around and give support and ideas and so on. And you'd be amazed to hear these little ones explain their project and tell why they're using this and what is happening. They're able to do it. We underestimate the ability of these children, but that's the opportunity we must give them, and the platform for them to express themselves and all of that.
I keep saying, collectively, even as parents and as the ministry, the education system, we fail our young children, and that we often assume that their brains too small, they're too young to adapt and to process.
Oh yeah.
But you'd be surprised. You ask a little, you demonstrate something to a child. So this is a volcano, and you'll be surprised they will be able to explain to you in quite detail.
Oh yes.
What is it that's happening? But as educators, you know that their minds are most impressionable at those tender ages.
At that age, and long in our time, and even before, lack of information was a problem.
Right.
Go in a library, and so on and so forth. But today, information is everywhere. The challenge now is to filter that information, what's relevant,
Right.
and pull from that. But these little ones, you'd be amazed. They know so much already. And I have 2 sons of my own, and they amaze me all the time. Things I learned in my 30s and now learning. Like, daddy, this is the 21st century.
No, honestly, and it's a sentiment that we can all share. They are years ahead of us.
Oh, yes.
They are years ahead of us. But there's also, and let's focus on, we kind of hinted to it, but there's also an environmental aspect to all of this science conversation, the science fair, to greater awareness to impacts, the role that we play or do not play, and how it affects the environment and our sustainability.
Oh yes, because you see, when you look at the topics that we're speaking of for the science fair, we're looking at the blue economy, you're looking at flora and fauna, you're looking at energy, right? And here specifically is zeroing in on renewable forms of energy and so on, right? So how can we lessen or decrease our dependence on fossil fuel, which we know is non-renewable? It's being depleted, right? So these young minds have to be able to look at how we would use clean energy, right? The whole ideas of plastics and our rivers and our beaches and so on. Listening to the Prime Minister speaking about in the year 2080 or whenever, granaries could disappear, the carnage could disappear, and all of these things. When you think about that, you have to start thinking now about what would impact our Grenada and the region and the world then. So you can't wait until that time comes and then decide, otherwise it's problem. So that's why we speak about sustainability, whatever projects and so on are we doing now. And so these students, they had to think about that and think about what project waste, how we deal with our waste, recycling, filtration, all of these things, freshwater projects, you find some of those agricultural projects, right? Quite a bit of agricultural projects as well, because all of that speaks of food security, sustainability of life. So these are some of the things that we see coming up from the projects, and we're happy for that because that's the kind of impact we really want.
It's interesting you mentioned the year 2080. I don't know if you remember the days when there was a program on television, Beyond 2000. And when you were looking at that program in the early 80s, and you're thinking, your mind in those times couldn't fathom that which they were talking about. Electric vehicles and all of these different things. No, we here.
Crazy.
It seemed crazy. No, we here, and we're not going beyond 2000. We've already gone past beyond 2000. So the conversation really and truly has to be beyond 2050, beyond 2060.
Oh, yes.
What does the next 2 generational cycles, how do we position ourselves to assist them so that they can
function and
they can function.
Yes, yeah, because that's the whole idea. See, and that's where planning comes in. It's just something again that I learned from working on the projects. You have to plan. You have to look at what materials am I going to use. Are the materials available? Is this the best material to use? Are there any side effects, anything that would cause harm to my body or the environment and so on, right? So these are things that we have to look at on a larger scale as a nation as well, When we look at our nation, what are the things that we're doing today that would impact beyond, even when we're gone?
Would you agree that has been one of the challenges to our education system, our inability to have this continuous planning, short-term, medium-term, long-term?
Yeah, it's something I must say that, that has been an issue because, you see, in planning, you have to think, you have to be flexible. Right? You cannot be rigid, and you find that in education usually takes the longest to move because people like to do things the same way over and over. But we're living in an era, and COVID would have taught us that with overnight, some things could just change, our world could change. So we have to be flexible, we have to be adaptable, we have to plan with change in mind, so that you don't become so rigid. And that's what the system really needs, a sort of agile way of thinking, and you're able to move with the flow as things happen. All right, so but we're getting there. I'm hoping, one step, one day at a time. I'm seeing some positive, changes. Teachers, educators are coming on board with the whole idea of science is something that is active, something that is hands-on. So it doesn't have to happen in a classroom all of the time, which is critical.
Well, one little step for preschoolers and other school children, a giant step for the Ministry of Education. I'm assuming also that all of this, tell me though, how it forms, as you talk about long-term planning, I'm assuming all of this conversation comes up as part of, and it connects itself to our development pillars. I know the government has been very strict and very specific on those developmental agendas and goals. Right. I'm assuming all of this fits into that long-term conversation?
Oh yes, all of it fits into it because, one of the pillars is strategic planning. And so every department has to take that on board and flow with that, So the science fair, people may just look at the science fair as, children just having fun and so on, but it is part of that planning for what we want to see, the type of student you want to see graduated, the type of work person you want to see functioning in the workplace, because one of the big complaints is that students leave with all their 13 and 14 grade 1s, but they're not functional in the workplace. So you may have the head knowledge. I like how the facilitator, the math workshop puts it. He calls it, it's like you're having success, but it's not real. It's not real success because you have students. If I could cram well, and I could study past papers well, I could pass any exam, but put me to do it, it's a problem. So that's what we want to see, is change the paradigm, that students become a little more functional. Science is all around us, and we want them to have that hands-on experience and knowledge, and so this science fair fuels that.
But that challenge that you speak of comes from, many would argue, comes from that teaching concept from the primary school level, where children are just prepared, and not just even at secondary school. We feed them information just for the purpose of passing CPEA they go to secondary school, we just pump information onto them just for the purpose of passing a specific exam at the end of the 5 years, but not necessarily thinking, how do I apply? What do I do? The information that I have taken in, what do I do with that information? How do I assimilate it?
Yes, and how do you apply? And one of the biggest issues is application. CXC has tried, because this whole introduction of the teacher assessment aspect with the CPA is really to help the students have an input.
Right.
That they have this hands-on, this real and authentic, what we call authentic learning, authentic assessment, and so on. So while yes, that is the case, we are seeing movements trying to move away from that. One of the things that came out, and CXC could probably take a page from this with Singapore, is they have decided as a nation, they have the exams, and 20% of the exam would be non-routine. Students have never seen. So even though they may bring back some things, but 20% of it are things that they would have never seen. So that now must inform the teacher, because you can't now just keep teaching to the test. You have to teach these students to be able to think on their feet. When you sit and you read that paper, how do you solve a non-routine problem? So you don't have a formula, you can just pull and plug and get an answer, because that's students sometimes they're like robots. You just pull a formula.
That's what application.
Here you could have base time, you just pull a formula, you throw it in and you get your answer. But when it comes now, you just give them something to do and you leave them to see how they develop their steps and non-routine type problems. That's where you get application and problem solving and all of these things coming up.
Doug, you've seen the education system. You've been through it. You're still in it. I don't know what is it you see, but God bless you. No, God bless people like yourself that gets the appreciation for remaining directly involved in the education system. But there are those who would advocate. This is how we've seen the need for a continuous assessment as to the lead up to as entry into secondary school, and that. But then again, no, we move into universal education now. But there are those who've argued that a similar type structure should be introduced. That hardcore final exam that is set where you have to bust your brains, as they say, and if not, but a more continuous assessment where you assess the children who at whatever age you start at, from 3, from 4 up until 5th form, and then they're allowed to do a lighter exam at the end of the period instead of this rigid studying that helps, that some have argued it frustrates children more than anything else. What's your thought, though?
Well, we've all been through it, and I must say that it's a great idea, but it will take a lot more than just a great idea, because then you'll be talking, you have to speak to your examination bodies. There'll be a lot of adjustments that need to happen, because that's what we call pathways. Students could take a certain pathway and they go with that pathway and they do what is comfortable for them and so on. But that, again, as I said, it will take all hands on deck, and policy makers, and certain things that must happen which is above my pay grade. But that's the way to go. That really is the way to go.
25 minutes gone past the hour of 11 o'clock. Tell us, Dougie, as we wrap, dates for the science fair. Where does it take place?
Okay, thank you. So the science fair it has started. Today is the day, the 16th. Today is the day for all the heavy lifting and logistics and setting up of projects and so on. So from here, I'm heading straight down there. That's what's happening today. Tomorrow, the 17th, is the day for judging. So that's when the judges will come in and do their bit. And then on the 18th, which is where we're inviting all the public from 8:30, we have the public viewing, so you can come on down and encourage the students, see all their creative works, their innovations, all our future scientists. Come down and encourage them, let them see that you're interested, that their work is not in vain, because these comments and so on, it helps the students with their confidence. And then from 1:30 on the same 18th, Wednesday, we have our closing ceremony. We'd have distribution of prizes, certificates, and all of those great stuff. And that will bring the curtains down on Science Fair 2023. We're happy to have it this year because, COVID had put a big damp on it. We have Science Fair every 2 years. So the last one was 2018, but because of COVID, 2020 couldn't happen. So this is the first after a little lull. So we're really happy on coming back with a bang this year. So come on down and enjoy Science Fair 2023.
That's inside the National Stadium?
It's at the Trade Center.
Trade Center. Guys, I'm trying to figure it has to be one of those big, one of those big enough complex. Okay. Well, folks, it's happening inside of the Trade Center right now. Science Fair 2023. Go down, support, encourage. Just be there. Just of course, just to see exactly the brilliance of our young minds, because we often chide them that they're not channeling their directions, their energies in the right direction. But how much do you support them when they do decide to get on the bandwagon? My guest this morning, of course, former teacher, now of course, a curriculum development officer in the Ministry of Education. And as he said, he spent just a mere 25 years, just a mere 25 years, teaching. That's a whole generation that came and gone. But it only shows the passion.
Oh, yes.
It only shows the passion. It only shows the passion. If it was me, I'd be, well, I don't God, 25 years.
Still teaching, can't stop. Yeah.
Well, what is for you is for you. Anna Dougie, thanks for being part of this morning's conversation. For those of our listeners and viewers, we say thanks for being part of the conversation as well. The question is, what do you do? How do we change the paradigm of that which is to come to the next generation? We're not just going to talk it, but of course we are going to act it. And the Science Fair is back after a little hiatus since 2018. Look at how COVID, who would have imagined? Our lives was in full pace ahead. And then we slept to wake up, we heard about COVID. And then 3 years of our lives went into a spiral. Mm-hmm. But I keep saying, though, there's a lot of positivities that came out of COVID.
Oh, yes.
A lot of positivities. The way we think, the way we behave, our consciousness, to me, there has been an awakening
of what could happen, what's possible.
And that the fact that the world is a global village is not just an expression, but it's a reality of the threats, but at the same time, the opportunities for education. Oh, yes. You notice these days, you're getting an online program in universities that you never knew existed.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you never knew that they existed. But since after COVID, they're out.
Everything opened up.
Take the opportunities.
Take advantage of it. Yes.
Take advantage, folks, of the Science Fair. If you're not directly involved, you can support. Yes, you can support. So we leave the conversation for now. So today they do the heavy lifting. Tomorrow, well, is the judging, and then the final day they invite you, the general public, to be part of the conversation and be part of the closing ceremony. Until then, so long, everybody. JC loves you.
Thank you.
Have a great run.